Welcome to the monster session. We start off at 4 p.m. in the afternoon and we end at 5 a.m. For our first game, we buy into Mark's game. It's a private game here at Poker House at Texas. There's a $1,000 buy-in. It's 1-2, and there's multiple games going on. The 7 deuce, everyone pays you money. Then we have the knit button game. You have to win a hand to get rid of your knit button, and the last person standing has to pay each person $20. This first hand is bonkers. We look down at 7, 6 of hearts, and we're in the triple straddle. It folds around to Jack from Next Gen Poker. He's in the first straddle. He raises up to $80. The second straddler gets out of the pot, and now it's on us. I think with this hand, sometimes we can call, but we want to fold out all of his range and get rid of this knit button that we just got when we sat down. So we 3-bet to $220. Expecting this to get the job done against most of his hands, but then Jack decides to 4-bet. And he goes all in for nearly $500. Now, there's no way to really justify this, but we put in the call. We're gambling here. We should be folding against any 4-bet range with the suited connector, but we just sat down at this action table, and we want to bring it because that's how you're going to get it in return. So we decided to put in the chips, guys. And if he has overcards to our hands, we're in great shape equity-wise, but if he has an overpair, then we're going to be struggling heavily. So when we go all in, we table our hand. We have 6, 7 hearts, and he shows us ace 9 offsuit. I had a feeling he would be a little light, but not this light. The first board comes out and it's ace high, ace queen 8. The turn is a deuce, and now we're dead. The river is a 5 of diamonds. We lose the first board. We need to lock up the second board. The flop comes 6, 4, 8 with 2 clubs. We have middle pair, and the turn is the 6 of spades. So now we lock it up, and the river's the 3 of spades, and we chop this pot up. But obviously, this is a horrible move for someone who wants to make a living off poker. But I play to improve and have fun, and if we do make some money, that's just a plus. So I'm glad to get in with Jack. We want to show the table that we're here to play and have fun, and we want the table to feel loose, and we want to be a part of that energy so that we can get it in return. And I think it's profitable long-term against an action table like this. This next hand really showcases how much fun this table is. So we look down at pocket 6s in the second straddle. We have $12 out there, and it folds all the way to us. To our left is Mark, the guy who puts on this game with around $1,000, and we want to get rid of our knit button just for the glory. We decided to put Mark all in. I'm all in. Everyone erupts in laughter. With the knit game on, shit gets wild, and after taking down the hand and losing my knit button, I show everyone that we had pocket 6s. My notes say that he will call any raise, and our hand is too vulnerable, so we jam.
That's the highlight of my life right there.
So this is a fun table. Let's get the action going. Don't forget to subscribe and join my poker journey, and to get all the notifications for when my vlogs come out each week. It's been about an hour of card death, and we look down at deuce 7. Remember, if we win with the worst hand in poker, everyone on the table has to pay us $20. So we have a huge incentive to play this. We've been quiet, and we want to represent a strong hand. We end up getting 2 callers, so now we're playing monkey in the middle with $300 in the pot. The flop comes queen jack 7. We do flop bottom pair, but against 2 players on a queen jack board, which they're going to have heavily covered, we decide to check our option to our friend to our left. Our opponent decides to bet over the pot. He makes it $415. And our opponent is Mark, the guy who runs this action-packed game. Versus an overbet, I'm just going to let this hand go. It's very likely that he has a queen or a jack, and even against draws like 9-10 or ace-king, which is really unlikely, we don't have a lot of equity here, so we just let it go. We want to live to see another day because he's going to build this pot way too big for us and how uncomfortable we are right now. And everyone's so upset we didn't get sticky because everybody at this table wants to see hero calls, so the night is lively. This table is way too much fun. In this next hand, we're in the big blind with pocket deuces, the ducks, and it folds to us, so we're going to raise it up. We're going to go big out of position here because there's a double straddle to 12, so we're going to make it $40, and only the second straddler decides to call, so we're going heads up to a flop, and baby, it is good. Ace, king, deuce. So we flop bottom set. So the opponent that we're against just bought in for $1,000. He's brand new to the table, so when he completes in the big blind for 40 against our raise, I'm putting him on an ace X holding, such as ace 5 or some sort of king queen, king 10. So our goal here with bottom set is to figure out how to get all the money in the middle. And the best part about this board is that we can represent the top of our range, like ace king, aces, and kings. So we decided to bet out small for value. We make it $25. Our opponent decides to snap call. This feels like he has top pair. pair with a decent kicker like I was assuming pre-flop, and the turn comes the 3 of hearts. I know we made it really cheap, so 4-5 got a good price to call, but I still think it's really important to go for max value and to build a massive pot right now. So my plan was that if he calls this flop bet that we're going to go big on the turn, so we put out $135. So we put a large bet out nearly the size of the pot, and our opponent does not take longer than 2 seconds to call this bet. So now we're kind of curious, what would he be calling with? He doesn't have ace king, and it's very unlikely he has ace deuce. Maybe he just turned 2 pair like ace 3, but I think he'd be trying to raise against my holdings unless he thinks we're a nit and we might have ace king. My whole perception of like where the hand is going and the speed of his calls, it feels like this opponent has played this game many times, and he might be a regular here at Poker House trying to make money off of people just punting. So this is where I'm at mentally when we go to the river, is that he's trying to catch some bluffs. The river is a blank, is the 8 of clubs. Only 2 hands that reasonably beat us right now are pocket 3s and 4-5, which I think are very unlikely. And if he does have those hands, good game, take all my money. So now we go into the tank. We're trying to figure out how do we maximize our value here? How do we get the most money in the middle? And I'm contemplating a jam, but I think that's just such an overplay. So we're thinking in our head that we should place around a pot size bet, maybe just a little under, and make it around $400. But as we're contemplating our next move for max value, our opponent says to me,
Just rip it. Come on.
might as well rip it. And the moment he says that, I already know what I'm gonna do, because he's looking for action and we're gonna give it here. And what a great place to do it is on this action table. We might look like a maniac and get paid off here, so we go all in as our opponent requested. Man, just reliving this hand gives me a huge adrenaline rush. So now our opponent goes into the tank. He asked for it, so now let's see what he wants to do. You can hear our opponent in the background. He's giggling and he says okay in confusion. He's like, what did I just do? Why did I say that? It feels like we're already ahead. I expect hands like 2 pair, like ace 3, maybe ace king once in a blue moon, or ace 8 to snap call. But when he does not snap call, I'm assuming he just has an ace now. And now we're hoping for a call because he's tanking. So our opponent says to us, are pocket 4s any good? And then I say back to him, flush draw question mark. And then I say out loud that you have ace 4.
You got ace 4. You got ace 4.
I just think on this action table, trying to guess the person's hand is just a great way to look like you're bluffing. And the best part about my move is it feels like a bluff, and it sort of conceals the strength of our hand. And our opponent puts in the call, and then he ends up mucking frustratedly. And I saw the ace of hearts, so maybe he had ace 4 of hearts, and we lured him in on the turn, and that's why he snap called, because he had all the equity in the world. Any heart or 5 would have given him the straight. So we just take down a massive pot that's just shy of $1,800. We are flabbergasted, and like, what a weird way for a hand to play out when I'm in my value range and we're against an opponent who's hero calling. It was a perfect scenario, a perfect run out, and a perfect play to just sort of get max value against someone who was willing to call. So I'm feeling speechless now, but we're on to the next hand. When I started my poker journey, I learned the hard way, and that was losing money. But now there's an easy way to get started and just play for fun with Replay Poker. Thank you for sponsoring today's vlog. My favorite feature is its accessibility. You can play on your phone, your tablet, or your computer. There's no app required. Log in and start playing on their easy-to-use software. Remember, this is all free and it won't cost you anything. Players on here are diverse, punters and grinders. This community is looking to rise and play together on a fun online environment. You're given free chips when you sign up. Bonuses for daily logins and for referring friends. Make sure you sign up now and use my referral link. It's in my bio to help me and your friends make it to the high stakes tables. And if you want to get the feeling of playing on a high stakes table without the risk, you can buy chips now on Replay Poker. Let's say your chips fall under 500. You'll get a daily top off of 2,500 chips just to cater to all player types. I think this is a great platform for all player types and gambler enthusiasts. Hop on and play with me right now by clicking the link in the bio and sign up for free on Replay Poker. An hour later, we looked down at ace queen offsuit. We raised it up to $20 in early position. We end up getting a call from the small blind and the big blind, and the flop comes queen high with a couple of clubs, queen 5, 7. It checks to us, and we're going to see bet here. We're going to go a little bit larger, especially with a flush draw, and essentially the Taylor size versus the maniac player who is in the small blind, a very polarized, wild, but talented player named Cody, and he decides to put in the call, and the big blind is out of there, so it's $170, and the turn is the 7 of hearts, which pairs the board and brings a backdoor heart draw. And honestly, I just don't want to get in big pots against this guy because he will put max pressure against every person I've seen, so we decided to check this back. I essentially want to be playing the top of my range versus an opponent like this, and I think if we had pocket queens, this would be a great hand to continue with, especially when the middle card pairs, because he has a lot of sevens in his range. And I've noticed Cody to be a sticky player, so we don't really want to overplay our single pair hand. The river comes the ace of hearts, which brings in the backdoor flush draw, and Cody puts a blocker bet out for 50 bucks, and we're just going to call this. No reason to raise. We'll only be targeting hands like another queen or pocket nines, pocket tens, pocket jacks, which are unlikely. So we put in the call, and we win against queen nine offsuit, so that feels good to scoop in a small pot. An orbit later, we look down at ace nine of hearts in middle position. There's a $12 straddle on, and early position, Jack from Next Gen Poker makes it $30. I'm going to 3-bet and isolate him. We're going to make it $85. It folds back to Jack, and he puts in the call, so $170 in the middle. We're going to a flop, which comes king, king, 8 with 2 diamonds. It checks to me, and now we're going to c-bet here for about a third of the pot, a little bit larger, maybe 40%. We make it $70, and our opponent calls. I think Jack plays pretty face up towards me. I think he calls when he thinks we're bluffing, and he folds when we think we have value. So when the turn comes, the queen of spades, which is a better card for him than for me, and I'd only be continuing here with obviously a king or a straight or possibly a flush draw. I think we're just going to check this back and give up. No need to really bloat this pot when we have no real equity. So we check it back, and the river is the 9 of spades. So now we get third pair, and he checks to me, and I don't think this is a spot to go for value. We're just going to check back our showdown value because he would be trapping sometimes against me, and we don't want to ever face a check raise here. So we check back, and he says that he has an 8, and we let him know that we rivered him and that we have ace 9, and he mucks, a little frustrated, but that's how it is sometimes. So we scoop this decent sized pot around 300 bucks. This next hand is wild. If you listen to the audio of this clip, I'm actually scared to look down at my cards because there's a $94 straddle on.
Holy shit, I am scared to look at my cards right now, guys.
We're in the big blind, and we end up peeling ace queen offsuit, a very strong hand. And I think the best move here, with around $150 in the middle that's dead, is to rip it all in. I think we're going to get mostly value against people being sticky against our rip. This definitely is an overplay because we'll be getting called by ace king 100% of the time here. So when we rip it all in, we get one caller, a shorter stack with around $400, and then everybody who straddled folds. So now we're heads up. We flip over our cards, and we're up against ace jack offsuit, so we're in the lead by a lot. We agree to go twice with our opponent. There's $1,000 in the middle. We have ace queen. The flop comes queen high, but sadly it follows with 4 hearts in the flop, and we lose to the ace high flush. Our opponent has the ace of hearts with the jack of diamonds. And then on the second board, it comes king high, and then the river is a jack of spades. We end up losing around $500 in that pot. Goodbye to the profits, but we're glad with our play. In this next hand, the nip button game is on, and we look down at queen jack offsuit. Obviously, we want to play as many face cards right now with the nip button game to save us some money and our ego, so we end up raising it up to $15. We're under the gun, and then under the gun 2, Mr. Regis decides to put in the call, and then the late position player decides to raise it up to $100. Then the button, Cody, the action player, decides to put another $100, and now assuming Regis is going to call, we're going to throw in the $100 with our implied odds. So we throw it in, and Regis comes along, and we end up going 4 ways to a flop. The flop isn't bad for our holding. It comes queen 10-3 rainbow. We have top pair with a decent kicker. It checks all the way around though to the button, who decides to bet $150. We're gonna put in the call here and evaluate a river, and both other opponents fold, so now we're going heads up against the button. Cody, the maniac action player, he knows how to get value, and he also knows how to bluff. So this guy, he might end up getting all my chips. We will see. The turn is the 9 of hearts, so we're gonna check to our opponent and see what he wants to do. We're expecting a decent sized bet, but he decides to lower it to $200, which is nearly 1/4 the size of the pot, and I'm going to interpret this as a blocker bet. I'm putting him on a 1 pair holding, maybe as ace 10, but my thought process doesn't go further past that. I think if we pull a play here, such as an all-in, we can really represent the nuts here, such as king jack. So now I'm trying to figure out, how do we win this pot? I know we have the nit game going on right now. As you can see, it's covering my cards, but I think if we decide to put in all of our chips here, we can get him to fold a lot of cards here, especially top pair hands such as like king queen. But we're representing hands like king jack, jack 8, and queen 10, or a bottom set like pocket 3s. And a decent amount of those hands would be going all in for value on this turn card. And I think it's best for us to realize our equity here, and I don't think our opponent's too strong, but we do want to represent the top of our range. So So not to get too crazy into, we do block the nuts with the jack. So we decide to check raise all in, and we put $1,100 in the middle, and now the pot has blown up to $2,000, and Cody's in the tank. After a minute, our opponent decides to fold, and he gave me respect for the first time. What a relief, and my hands are shaking, and he decides to slide the cards our direction, and guess what he folded? He had ace queen of clubs. So I just got so lucky pulling off this semi-bluff with our queen jack, open-ended straight draw, and that's about it. So yeah, so happy to get this bluff through. We didn't know we were up against such a strong hand, and since we have the nip button, now it's time to show our table and give the button away, and we also collect another $20 for losing our nip button. In this next hand, we have 9-7 clubs in the small blind. Cody decides to raise it up to $30. We're going to call and give it some action with 9-7 of clubs, and the big blind comes along as well. The flop comes ace 6-5 with 2 hearts. I check, the big blind checks, and now it's on Cody. He c-bets for 50. I think with a backdoor flush draw and a gutter to the straight, we're just going to put in the call here. So we put in the call, the big blind folds, and now we're going to a turn, which is the 7 of spades. A great card for us. We get second pair, but we also have all the straights in our range. I check, and Cody decides to bet big on this card. He makes it $150. I know this is a little sticky, but I wanted to give him some action, and I also think sometimes he can be bluffing here, and this is something he did in the past, is bet large when he had nothing. So we put in the call. This pot is nearly $500, and the river's a decent card. It's the ace of diamonds, making it less likely our opponent has an ace, so we're going to check it over to him because we have great showdown value, hoping he'll check back any bluff, but our opponent decides to bet $50 into a $500 pot. That's 10% the size of the pot. Okay, we're not going to raise here, so we just put in the call, and we end up losing to ace 9, so we got max value on that river against our second pair. I mean, if he went big, I would have called as well. Lucky us, we didn't face a $400 bet, because I think we would have found the call here. Nice hand, Cody. This pot goes to him. All right, this is the final hand of Mark's game. After this, we cash out, we go get some food, and we end up playing all the way till 5 a.m. So that'll be on vlog part 2 of next week. So be on the lookout. Make sure you guys subscribe and follow my poker journey. In this last hand, we have ace queen offsuit. Again, we're under the gun. There's a $6 straddle. We're going to raise it up to $25. And not very surprising, but we get 3 callers, so it's $100 in the middle. The flop comes jack 10 deuce with 2 spades. Playing monkey in the middle versus many opponents here. When it checks to us from the small blind, we're going to check to our opponents in position and see what they want to do. One of the opponents in late position decide to bet $50, and then everyone ends up coming along, which is kind of surprising. And when the turn comes, the 9 of clubs, it ends up checking all the way around. So we have an open-ended straight draw, and guess what the river is? The 8 of diamonds. So now we have the second nut straight. The only hand that beats us here is king queen, which I think is unlikely because we block many of those combos. So then we decide to go for a blocker bet of $100, and everybody folds. Not very surprising, but I guess we take down this final pot. So we bought into Mark's game for around $1,000, and we cashed out for $1,468 for a profit of $468. Hope you guys enjoyed this crazy session, and make sure you subscribe to see the next vlog coming next week of this session continuing where we go on a heater.